Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum, Alum, and James. How you going, guys?
Not bad.
Happy to be here on a nice Anzac Day.
Yes, that's it. Lest we forget.
I'm saluting.
Get your cookies.
Yeah, get your cookies, get your badges.
Yeah. Ribbons.
Yes. So we have something very un-Anzac Day to talk about this week. It's Evil Dead Rise. Weird, awful segue.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm like, what is is there a connection?
No, there's
there's a
none.
name.
Oh, wait, it's filmed in New Zealand. There's a connection.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yeah, a lot of the actors are Aussies.
Yeah, and Kiwis as well. Yeah, so there you go. It's Anzac co-production.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Makes sense with the earthquakes in New Zealand and then it being in California technically.
Oh, that was a real earthquake. That wasn't in the script.
Spoiler alert! Get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So we went and saw the new Evil Dead movie, which we were kind of cautiously optimistic, maybe cautiously. We went to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have been seeing the Pope's Exorcist instead. I'm just saying. So that was the options I think for the scary movie time.
I would prefer to see the Evil Dead myself. If I have to choose one of the two.
Yeah, but have you seen the Pope's Exorcist yet?
No.
I buy you the bread. The big ghost come out of the bread.
Yeah. Anyway, so a little background on this movie first. It's one of those weird movies that was a streaming release before it tested too well, and they gave it to
You're
theaters.
supposed to go
What was the
straight to
other film?
HBO Max.
Smile.
That was the one.
Yeah,
But Smile deserved a theater release because that was banging.
Yeah, I actually was watching Smile. I was like, oh, I'm surprised that there was.
Yeah.
But this one, I'm like, oh, I can see it.
You can see it. It's definitely one of those movies where, like, you can see that this probably was a streaming movie.
Yeah.
It's very kind of all shot.
Well,
It's like in the same one location.
Yeah.
It's very...
The movie starts like in the classic Evil Dead cabin in the woods. And the actors start talking and they're using American accents, but they're just off. And I'm like, is this an Aussie? Was this filmed in Australia? And then they show the cabin and there's all these really tall like gum trees, eucalyptus trees. I turned to Callum in the cinema and I'm like, was this shot in Australia? And he's like, it looks like it.
Yeah.
And then Lily Sullivan, who plays Beth in the movie, I know she's Australian. And then there's like the neighbor characters, all these Maori blokes. And I'm like, oh, this must be shot in Australia or New Zealand. But yeah, it was all shot in New Zealand, which is cheap apparently. And yeah, it all takes place in the one sort of floor of the apartment building. Basically one apartment.
Essentially.
Really.
So, like, you can kind of see like how it was going to be a streaming release. It's very low budget. I mean, a lot of horror is low budget.
Yeah, but it
didn't feel low budget.
It wasn't like it was really low budget. Like, it didn't feel cheap.
No, it didn't feel cheap, but it was all kind of just shot in a couple areas.
Yeah.
Which is a trademark kind of streaming movie sign.
Yeah. Also a horror movie trope.
Or a horror movie trope.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, you can see how it could have been
Yeah,
a streaming release as well.
But anyway, it tested so well that
Yeah.
they'd release it theatrically.
I wouldn't say... Look, as far as the two recent horror movies that have come to theaters while being made for streaming, I'd say Smile is better.
Oh, easy.
I think we all enjoyed Smile more just because it was like so
Cerebral.
crazy in your face, and there was a psychological element, and
But
we weren't I wasn't expecting it to be good at all.
Yeah.
And then when I was surprised, I was like, oh, there was some cool... Even, I had problems with it, but...
Did you end up seeing Smile?
Yes, I quite enjoyed it.
You went with us, didn't you?
Yeah, because the idea that I explored kind of the woman dealing with obviously her grief relating to her mother and how she couldn't kind of save her versus actual horror. You always... It's blended so well.
Yeah.
That you're so like struggling to kind of be like, so is this the horror element or is this
real
the grief? Just real grief.
The whole thing was like she's a therapist or whatever, and then it's just like, is she having a mental breakdown or is it real? Is the monster real or whatever?
But I do find it interesting when the companies decide to throw the movies to theaters because I think a movie's too good for streaming. It's kind of almost like a backhanded compliment to your subscribers.
It is. It's just like...
It's like, this is too good for you.
It's a compliment to the filmmakers, but also like...
It's why a knock against the service.
It's like, it's also like a knock against like... Why were you... movies are so weird now.
But you know what I mean. It's like, it's saying this movie's too good for your streaming service, it has to go to theaters. And I was like, well then, I'm paying good money for this streaming service. Are you giving me a product?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're artificially keeping me with...
You're giving us the crappy stuff.
Obviously, the company behind the streaming service is obviously paid the production costs, right?
But it's the same company all the time.
So if they pay the production costs, which inevitably would be taken out of, let's say, a budget for the streaming service.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that like recuperated and then given to something else?
Well, let's use the example. I'm pretty sure.
They're just like, you don't get this. Go watch in the cinemas.
I'm
pay
pretty sure
$15.
For Smile, I'm pretty sure it was Paramount.
Okay.
But Paramount has Paramount Plus, and obviously they're like studio distribution division. But I'm like, it's the same company. There's no kind of just like, oh, we need to display it here because we paid the production costs here. Well, it's all the same business. And in this one, it was HBO. I think it was made. Evil Dead Rise was made for HBO Max. Obviously released through Warner Brothers. I'm guessing in the theater.
It's New Line. It's New Line Cinema, who I'm assuming Warner Brothers owns them. Yeah. I think they do, yeah. But
it's just a very weird situation. You've got we got the companies being like, no, this is too good for streaming. It's going to theaters. And we're like, but I'm paying for your streaming service. Show me respect too.
On one hand, it's good. On the other hand, it's bad. On one hand, it's just like, oh, that's a compliment to the filmmakers. On the other hand, it's like, well, why didn't you just trust the filmmakers in the first place? Because it's all about money, and we always complain about the same things.
But it's
just a product. It's a product they were churning out because they have the IP. Yeah. There's like we own the Evil Dead name. Let's churn out some crap, put it on the streaming service, and then when the filmmaker does a good job with the little they're given, it's surprise Pikachu face. I guess all the suits are like, let's put at the movies and make even more money.
Exactly. But I'm like, at the same time, it's like the streaming services are costing us more every month, and there's less coming out.
There's less coming out. So the question I had is again, so could that producer have gotten actual, let's say movie budget money? To make something possibly better, and then again, the streaming service still had that allocated fund to actually make something else. Because again, the HBO's cut how many different things?
Yeah, exactly.
Lately.
Especially HBO is a complete nightmare at the moment.
Yeah, they've cut funding to so much crap.
HBO
so it's like
Max,
so it's like, what are you paying for again? Like, again, now this movie again, let's just say hypothetically, it was paid for by the budget of, let's say, HBO Max production.
Yeah, it's an HBO Max budgeted production. But where's that money gone? It's gone to theaters now. Yeah. You're cutting more money from your
exactly. It's like, so what do I get for paying my subscription fee?
Nothing. You're subsidizing the theatrical distribution cost.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to pay for the cinema anyway.
Yeah, and that's paying for the ticket.
So
and the popcorn and the choc top.
Dipping us, man.
They're also, after the pandemic, the studios are doubling down on like getting people back to the cinemas. They're like, for a long time, we used to talk a lot on the show about, streaming's the future and things are going to change and, movie theaters are never going to be, cinemas are never going to be the same. And now studios are doubling down on, no, movies still make, the most money. We're going to get people back to the cinemas.
So is it a quantity problem? Because there's not enough coming out the movies that they have to take stuff from their
That's probably part of it.
Then we need to go down the A24 kind of route of like cheaper movies. You know what I mean? Just get
quality product.
Quality products made for less. You know what I mean? Like that kind of A24 indie studio kind of ethos.
We always talk about how they spend too much money on all these garbage superhero movies, and it's because it's the safe bet. It's high risk, high reward.
Yeah, like up until recently, they would bring in quite a bit of bank. It's been more recent when people are just like, I'm tired of this.
Yeah,
I can only watch like 18 movies so often.
Yeah, 18 of the same.
I mean, like long time listeners of the show will know we've recently decided just to stop watching the Marvel movies at the cinemas now anyway, because eventually they'll come to Disney Plus and everything's too expensive.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is just like, but the studios, they're still trying to get people to go to the cinema because they've realized the streaming, which for us was like, I love the movies, but streaming,
studios want more money.
Exactly, but because we were like, the streaming is more convenient, it's more cost effective, it's easier to see more movies at home or whatever.
But you can't have it both ways, because it's like
that's what they're trying to do.
They also recently raised the cost of Disney Plus to like what, $189 a year, whatever it is. Crunchyroll's gone up quite a substantial amount. Like
again, most of us at this point are paying for.
Netflix has gone up.
Foxtel's level of service.
Exactly.
Because when I consider I've got the Crunchyroll, the Prime, I'm stealing somebody else's Disney Plus, thankfully. I'm stealing somebody else's KO. So that's how you balance it out. You steal other people's stuff. Yeah. Got the Netflix.
Well, Netflix is cracking down on that now, so that's going to be the future of streaming services.
So everyone's paying like a little bit, or eventually, if they crack down hard enough, everyone will be forced to, if they want a bit of everything, pay like what, $70, $80 a month.
Yeah,
you're back to.
We've talked about it many times. We're back to the cable problem.
Yeah. They're raising the cost of HBO Max, which you can't get in Australia, but if you're me, you do.
Yeah.
After cutting content,
Yeah, they're raising the cost substantially.
Oh wait, no, you know why they're raising it? Because they're folding in all the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, and they're dropping the HBO from it. They're dropping the HBO from it.
It's just called
calling
Max.
it Max. So dumb.
So bad.
So we're also paying for YouTube.
Yeah, paying for YouTube. It's
Apple pay for Apple.
Apple Music.
Yeah,
and
Apple has quality stuff.
Apple has quality stuff. I don't mind paying it. We go in on a family plan, so it's a bit more affordable.
You also get the music, which
We
you
also
guys
get the
listen
music.
to a lot.
I like the music, and you get the Apple Arcade. Apple's a different beast because you have the family plan thing where you can get like 5 accounts on the one family plan.
Yeah.
So that costs $28 a month, but when you divide it by 5 people, that's not so bad.
Until they do the same things in Netflix and like you can only have 5 accounts if they're in the same room.
That'll never happen because it's rolled into Apple's whole. Like,
actually, yeah, then you couldn't have one on your phone.
Yeah.
And,
but Apple's not too bad.
Yeah.
It ends up being 50 something a year for everybody.
Yeah.
that's not bad.
For Apple TV Plus, that's pretty damn good.
And their shows are pretty good.
Anyway, back to the Evil Dead. The gore's good at least.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed. They didn't shy away from having like a lot of horror movies these days. They have the shocks and the scares, but they kind of shy away on some of the more confronting violence and gore.
Because before this movie came out, everyone the buzz was, oh, it's so gory. It's like people are leaving the cinema. Like it's so.
It's not that bad.
If you're a horror movie fan, this is not that bad.
It's similar to what you would have seen in the 80s.
There's some gruesome bits, but nothing.
But it's also something we haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah.
Like even Smile, as good as it was, didn't have that kind of gore.
Well, that was a different. That's
different.
The thing, Smile and Evil Dead Rise, completely different movies. They're doing completely different things. Yeah.
But we haven't seen like a gory horror movie like this in a little while, which was nice to see.
And I guess for me, it was because I haven't seen any of the
That's
Evil
fair.
Dead.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it was an interesting experience. It did also push me into that. It had a vibe of like zombie / demon stuff.
Yeah.
Or, whereas like normally you've just got a super insanely powerful demon creature of sorts that's very, very difficult to
He hides in the shadows.
Yeah, hides in the shadows, this sort of thing. Where this is in your face. Weird stuff coming out of your mouth and nose, and eventually your intestines flying out and stuff. And also like not necessarily having that weird brute strength. Like this is people can fight back a little bit, which I always appreciate a little bit. There's the aspect of being completely helpless, and that's I guess it works well as a trope in films that kind of keeps you in your seat. But
it's part of the horror. It's inescapable, and a lot of horror movies have sad endings.
But
so when we found out about this movie even coming out, I think I mentioned to Alan at one point. I said, I hope you watch the original first, because it's a franchise film. It's like
they're not really connected, or they are, but
so none of the original characters returned for this film, and it doesn't have the original.
It's more of a reboot, cool.
Yeah, kinda. But I guess if you'd watched the original, God forbid the original 3, but the original 1, you would have got to see some of the cinematic references to the original, such as the way the camera moves at the start, and like James says, the cabin.
That was a good fake out with the drone.
Yeah, that was fun.
Like that kind of stuff adds to the depth of the film if you're familiar with the Evil Dead as a franchise, not just.
I do think, and in saying that though, I do think there are a couple of references in this movie, like specifically to Evil Dead 2, which were too on the nose, like characters just saying lines from Evil Dead 2. And, the chainsaw returns, which I guess is a series staple, so I guess they had to have it. The shotgun returns. I'm like, do you really need this stuff? You've already got the basic idea of the Necronomicon and resurrecting the dead and all that. Do you need to have
I took them for more like winks,
but
they weren't integral.
But that's the thing, is they're not integral, but they're still there. Like, and it's just like, because Evil Dead 2 is my favorite. And I'm like, it's that Star Wars problem of like, they're going, hey, remember this?
You remember the old
And I'm like, yes, I do remember. I love that movie, but I'm watching this new movie now and I don't care that you're repeating the same. Yeah. It's not that bad. It's not that much. I'm just saying.
There were also the blatant homage to The Shining.
Even stuff like that. I was like, we get it. We get it.
Yeah. But I was also like, wow.
Subtle guy.
Subtle guys. But also, am I wrong in thinking that like the kind of the spoiler alert, the creature at the end, it gave me Thing vibes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do
was
think
hoping
that was a
little
bit
bit
different.
little
Yeah,
bit
that
buried.
was
It'd
well
be
done.
interesting to see how Alum, having just seen Evil Dead Rise, how would feel about the originals. If you know,
It's going to be a big shock.
yeah,
because
because the original
they're-
was very stark, very not
it's
serious
40,
necessarily,
you know,
but
the
it was very
first one,
grim.
First one came out 40 years ago, and was super low budget. It's got a very DIY sensibility about it. Yeah. And Evil Dead Rise, even though it's not a huge budget movie, it's a very polished, modern movie. Actually, that's the first thing I said to Callum or Nathan when we walked out of the cinema. It's something we always complain about in the show. We were even just talking about it last
it's a very
episode.
brown movie.
They suck all the color out of it. It's very grey brown, kind of digital looking movie. And it's just like Callum was talking about 80s horror movies and 80s it's just like the colors used to pop in those movies. Even if it was really dark, scary, gory movie, the blood was bright red, and shirts, the clothes would...
Like, I get that it's a horror movie. It's supposed to be, like, dimly lit, dark. But at the same time, it's set in the derelict apartment complex, and everything's just brown.
We've talked about it before, though, is old movies, when something was dark and shadowy and derelict, you could still see what was going on. It still had color to it. The shadows were dark, but the colors were still there. Yes, there's something hiding. It's spooky. But you got a sense of the depth of the room. You got a sense of the colors would pop, especially if you're watching it in 4K. Now almost all modern movies have that really flat grey brown look, and they're trying to make it too dark because they're trying to make it quote unquote realistic. It's like, yes, real darkness doesn't look like 80s movies darkness, but the digital kind of recreation of quote unquote real darkness that a lot of movies try to replicate now, it's just like, I can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
It looks flat and boring and ugly.
It's more important for the audience to be able to see than it is to be realistic.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a movie. It doesn't have to be realistic.
I think the biggest culprit, one of the biggest recent culprits of that is not necessarily a movie, but it was episode 4 of the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
The night,
infamous.
it was just like, what's going on? Turn the brightness up.
And
it's not helping.
And, that was probably also because they had no idea what they were doing in terms of the story.
Yeah.
And they were just like, we just got to get rid of a bunch of guys.
Also, they probably mastered it on, it was 4K Dolby Vision.
When everyone complained about it, the people who made it were like, "Oh,
it looks good on my screen."
When we mastered it, it looked fine.
And then I realized that most of the population doesn't have a gigabit, and they don't have
Even
a
if you have a
TV.
gigabit, Mr. Foxtel over there is like,
That's
all you
it.
get is 1080.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a low
and
bit
it's not
rate.
even 1080.
Yeah, exactly. You get 560i, and you'll be fine with it.
You get the lowest bit rate that we can possibly give you.
Yeah, that's it.
So you see the pixelation, the clouds and stuff. I'm like, stop it. Get some help.
That's the other thing as well.
It's like, what do? You wait for the Blu-ray release? No, the show ended terribly. I'm not going to buy the Blu-rays.
No.
Yeah. Because that's the thing as well. It's especially with streaming. It's like you can master it. It can look as good as you want on your masters, but if your bit rate's limited or you're being limited, then obviously there's a bottleneck, and it can only look as good as the technology will allow. So I don't care how good it looked in the masters.
Yeah.
It looks brown and it looks
in terms of
look good on the TV.
Evil Dead Rise, it's a good looking movie. It looked fine.
Yeah, it looked fine.
But it's a symptom of
modern movie making.
It's a problem of modern movie making where I was just like. Also, do you guys want to go around and give your opinions, and then I'll go on my huge rant that'll take up the rest of the show?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, yeah. You guys,
Okay.
I'll
Callum,
shut up
what did
for a
you
bit.
think?
So I like the Evil Dead. I'm a fan of the franchise. My favorite would be the original 2. I can't choose between the 2 because they're kind of different. I mean, 2...
Same but different.
It's like a Star Wars argument. So 2 is objectively the best, in my opinion.
I think so, yeah.
But, 1 and 3 both have their own pros and cons. So it's like the original trilogy as a whole, like James always says, is like a wonderful, really great trilogy.
Some of the best horror movies.
Yeah. I actually don't mind the reboot, but it is what it is. We'll leave that conversation
I'm
for
going to
another
get
day.
that. That's my part of my rant.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
I actually liked the reboot. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was nice.
The 2013 reboot.
Yeah, that's right. Evil Dead Rise, I feel like my problem with it is... Now, I don't know where they got the script from.
We all thought it was okay.
It was a good film, but I don't know if they wrote it specifically for the Evil Dead as a unique Evil Dead movie, or if they acquired a script and then just jigging it up a little bit to include the Necromonicon in it and change the baddie.
We
the
were
old
talking
Cloverfield paradox issue.
Yeah, we
yeah.
were talking before the movie
Because that's not uncommon in horror movies.
exactly, yeah.
For them to, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's how Hollywood works.
Well, I mean, there is a bit of a problem with
but
it.
it's standard. It's what's done.
But I think in this case, Lee Cronin, the director, like also is the sole writer. So I think he wrote it and directed it as a Evil Dead project.
But it feels like it could have been any number of horror movies that they just replaced creepy guy with Necromonicon and adjusted a couple things, and then bam, you have yourself a doctor, ready to go horror movie.
Yeah.
So it didn't. Considering
it didn't break any molds.
I'm assuming the budget wasn't huge, so like they did restrain themselves to the apartment complex.
Yeah.
It felt very generic to me, which is not like again, it's not the worst thing in the world. Most horror movies, unfortunately, are generic. It kind of goes with the territory. That's why
there's a lot of tropes.
That's why directors like Ari Aster kind of stand out because they're like
the elevated horror. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so elevated horror in quotation marks. Yeah, so it's like that. Unfortunately, Evil Dead doesn't rise to Midsummer levels, but I don't think we'd.
Evil Dead doesn't rise to.
I don't think
Evil Dead doesn't rise.
I just got that. That was
Callum
unintentional.
that wasn't even intentional. Jesus.
Yeah, Evil Dead Rise isn't elevated, but that doesn't mean it wasn't. That doesn't mean it wasn't good. Like it did deliver.
Enjoyable,
it did more or less deliver what I wanted. It did not have me on the edge of my seat all the time, but it did keep my attention. I wasn't bored during the film.
And as someone who liked the 2013 remake, you said you enjoyed it more.
Yeah, so I think Rise had more interesting characters. I think it delivered on the premise better.
Did more different
It did.
things,
It was a unique film as far as it could be unique given the budget and the location and what the restrictions I had. It delivered it better with a more unique creative flair. But the 2013, that's not to say the 2013 one didn't try, because from what I understand, the plan was for the 2013 one to tie into the original. They were going to have Bruce Campbell make a return. And that they had this whole plan and it kind of fizzled out. So it couldn't live up to the potential they imagined for it going forward. But like I'll always say that the climax of the 2013 one is fantastic. I thought it was a great climactic ending, even if most of the movie was kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't like that movie, but I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but anyway, Rise, I feel like it had an interesting premise about the trapped family and the mother, whole kind of mother violence thing, the whole playing of motherhood and that type of thing, which is kind of common now in horror. Is this subversion?
It's just they needed
of familial ties. It was interesting to see the daughter. Spoiler alert for Evil Dead Rise, I guess.
How big of a spoiler is it?
Medium. Some of the characters turn into villains. You know what I mean?
They get possessed.
Get possessed. Yeah,
yeah,
and I was interesting to see that it wasn't necessarily going to have a hopeful ending, which is because some of these horror films, everyone lives, everyone goes on to have a happy ending. This isn't kind of that film. They did play with that a bit. They're like, you think you know who's going to survive. You're wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking because there are the three main kids. I'm like, there's no way they're going to do anything to those kids. And then they introduce the neighbors, the other people who live in the apartments. And I'm like, oh, those are the people that are going to get killed off so that the family can stay safe.
Yeah, that's right.
And without spoiling it too much, I'm happy that they went far enough of like, no, the family is not safe.
Yeah, because you always assume that the kids are going to be safe or the parents will live because they have to be the agents of change in the film or whatever. But yeah, in this, it was interesting to see they flipped the table a bit. Flipped the script.
Yeah.
Rearranged the furniture in the script.
Turn the tables.
That's it. And we end up with an interesting
Flip the
twist.
tables.
Yeah.
No, you already said that at the start.
We end up in an interesting position with the characters where we don't know who's gonna live, who's gonna die. We don't know what's that Texas Chainsaw quote? Who's gonna survive and what's gonna be left of them?
Yeah.
It's like that kind of situation, which I was like, at least like you said, it's bold where they're like, you know what, we're not gonna.
Yeah.
You're not gonna know. You think you're gonna know, but you're not gonna know what the end's gonna look like in terms of the heroes.
Yeah.
Because normally we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know, but normally you've got the final girl kind of thing.
Yeah, when kids are involved, you're like, okay, I think I know who's going to survive.
And so yeah, they had that going for it, which I think is interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. So it wasn't the worst film, wasn't the best. It's somewhere in the middle of the pack, kind of generic-ish horror film, but it wasn't like a slap in the face to the original franchise.
Yeah.
But it didn't deliver on the
Wasn't
hype.
amazing.
Wasn't as good as the originals either.
Oh,
But that's a high bar to reach.
Yeah, you'll never be able to reach that.
Alum Deep.
Well, I think one issue to be discussed is she's complaining about not being able to afford a nice apartment. I mean, yes, the building's derelict, but it's a big space. They got like multiple bedrooms
Yeah.
and crap, you know. I'd say they were living quite alright for like a family that's on the edge.
I think we talked about it one time where it's just like the reality of movies is not the reality of reality.
yeah,
where
like
it's
they
just
also
like
have to open up the space
house,
to make.
the
yeah.
house or the
Got
apartment
to fit
is
the
always,
cameraman in somewhere.
yeah, it's like the house or the apartment is like there's no way a single mother could afford this.
What's that meme?
or
What's that meme?
Single person.
The most ridiculous thing in Friends is that a bunch of these people
Yeah.
can afford the rent in
And
New
they
York
never
City.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just part of the movie reality.
Yeah, which is all right. One of the things I really, really particularly liked is, and as you said, the shot of the cabin towards the start of the film. How basically it almost looked like they were using like a fisheye kind of lens to not curve the mountains, but like make it very much like surrounded by really, really steep hills
Okay.
on
yeah.
both ends. I really enjoyed that shot. And obviously, we don't spend a lot of time in the cabin area. But I thought, some nice cinematography. I'm not a, film school guy. I appreciate a nice scene when I see it, though. I know what I like. And that was definitely one of those things. Somebody that hasn't, obviously, as you said before, seen into the Evil Dead series, I did want more information on kind of the Demon Book and the history
Yeah.
of that. That would have been a little more helpful. And maybe it's the fact that, again, that I haven't seen the previous films. I'll probably get that information there. It's just...
There's a bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, like I'd like a little bit more of lore into the world. They had 96 minutes. I think if they had 10 more minutes of film time and they put a little bit more information in.
I think the thing with Evil Dead though is like it's always characters who come across the book and the recording, and then it screws up their life.
Yeah,
It's never really been about like the
but I
lore
want to
around
know,
the book.
damn it.
Oh, the TV series had
Watch
some of that
Ash
stuff.
versus the Evil
Yeah.
Dead.
There's a
But-
book, damn it, the book of teeth
But
and stuff.
actually, that would be a good another movie in the franchise. Is like doing a prequel set in the ye olde days of like the early days of the book.
Yeah.
But, I mean, kind of like Hellraiser. It's like they never give it the time and the money it needs to do stuff like that. They're always trying to go the cheapest
Yeah.
Well, it's
route
interest-
possible.
A long time ago on the show, I'm sure multiple times on the show, we've talked about how there's not enough Lovecraft in the world, and Evil Dead's this thing, you don't really consider it Lovecraftian until you hear people talking from the book, and it's just
There's an element
Lovecraftian
of it,
adjacent.
yeah.
It's like adjacent to
Well, the
Lovecraft.
Necronomicon is from
Lovecraft,
yeah.
Yeah, but it keeps itself separate.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
wouldn't it be interesting to see a little bit more of this world? I mean, we see it in
Yeah.
Ash vs. Evil Dead, but
Well, I
like you
think-
said, a bit more. Like,
But it's-
who wrote the Necronomicon? What forces were they talking
Well,
to?
I think one I wouldn't like an origin of the Necronomicon because I like that mysterious nature of it. And two, like I just said, ideally, if they, if the studios put some time and money into this, they could make an actual, medieval prequel. I know Army of Darkness was set, but that was more of like an adventure action kind of comedy. But you could make a sort of really good kind of medieval, movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to go that far back, but like something exploring some of the origins or whatever. But like I just said, the studio never
Yeah.
does that, and when they do, they don't give it the time and money, and it ends up being kind of meh.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would be a much more interesting
It's always
sequel or prequel, I guess it would be, rather than them just doing another one of these type of monsters attack family and teens and friends.
I do agree, and it's always one of those really funny things because, as we say, the horror movies are the ones that make the most money and require the least investment. So it's like show some respect and just give the horror movies a little bit more money because they keep you afloat, man.
Yeah, I think it's also like there are so many horror movies.
and also not enough.
No, I think a
Oh,
lot of
no,
them
they're
aren't.
enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of them aren't that
They're
good.
all on
There aren't
Shudder.
good, yeah, exactly. There aren't that many good horror movies.
Yeah, so I guess they don't want to pump in money, and then it's R-rated movie, so it already limits the audience. Yeah, so they're never going to take that big a risk.
A lot of the ones that are really edgy, they go straight to streaming nowadays, like Shudder and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but those are like super low budget
Yeah.
compared to this.
No, look, overall, I thought it was quite good.
Oh, but did you finish?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was a good film overall. I did like the fact that nobody's safe, technically speaking. Yeah, the themes of the mother and child relationship, that kind of this weird subversion. I was like, didn't really. I feel it wasn't very fleshed out, and they didn't have time to flesh it out.
Yeah,
But
Evil Dead's never been really a franchise about exploring
character
those
development,
themes.
yeah.
Yeah,
But in terms of gore and action scenes, they did a good job. I enjoyed it. Especially towards the end
yeah.
with the old chipper.
That's it. Right before we get to James, we'll go to a very quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're back on the Tuesday review. So we've all given our thoughts on Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, did you want to wrap up?
I started.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And now it's James's thoughts.
Okay, so I'm going to go on a really long, angry, annoying rant. So apologies in advance to listeners, but also not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
You know what you're in for.
Yeah, you've listened to enough of this show. Contrary to popular belief, I do not like the sound of my own voice. After this, I probably won't talk for days.
There's a reason James stopped editing the show.
Yeah, 100%. Between the week between each show, I do not speak to anyone. Anyway, I just love movies. I'm very passionate about it. So, I'm a huge fan of the Evil Dead franchise. Like Callum said, the original trilogy. Evil Dead 2 specifically is my favorite. I think it's the best one. And it was a very important movie to me growing up as a formative horror movie watching experience. And so I'm very biased, obviously, and, towards anything that comes from the Evil Dead franchise. After Army of Darkness, the third movie came out in 1992, for years there was rumors of, are they going to do Evil Dead 4? Are they going to do Evil Dead 4? And, 20 years went past, and there were a couple of video games which are kind of cool, but nothing ever came of it. And then in 2013, they made a remake of the original, which is kind of like a reboot, kind of more modern, new set of characters, but keeping the sort of cabin in the woods, finding the book, kind of people getting possessed, whatever. And I think critically it did quite well. I don't think financially it did super well, but critically it did okay. And a lot of fans, even original Evil Dead fans really liked that 2013 remake. And, Callum said he liked it as well. And I saw that movie when it came out and at the cinema, and I hated it. I hated it so much. There were my face turned red and there was steam coming out of my ears. I'm like, this is the worst movie. It's an insult to Evil Dead. It was just super cliche. It sucked all the life and fun out of the Evil Dead franchise. They were taking it way too seriously. And yeah, I just didn't like it. And then after that movie came out, like Callum said, there was all these rumors of, Ash, the protagonist from the original movies, was going to team up with the protagonist from the remake. And it's actually, then it's not actually a remake. It's set in the same universe.
Yeah.
And, there was plans of doing a sequel. And then there were also rumors that they were going to do Evil Dead 4 with Ash, and that they were going to ignore the remake and just continue on the after the third movie. And that never happened. And then the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series came out, which was awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah, hilarious. Awesome.
Yeah, and that to
Yeah.
me, I was like, this is what Evil Dead is supposed to be. You know, really fun, practical effects, gore, kind of bit of comedy, bit of horror. They explored some of the magic and the magic and the lore of things.
Some of the best one-liners in TV.
Yeah, it was really good one-liners, and you know, Bruce Campbell was just so fun to watch.
Ashy Slashy.
And and so that came out, and that got cancelled after 3 seasons and ended on a cliffhanger. And
Still hurts.
yeah, and I'm just like, jeez. And even after that, there was rumors of, are they going to do a movie? They could do a movie that's set after the TV show, and it could.
I mean, if this does well, I guess there's kind of hope
well,
for something.
after Ash versus Evil Dead, I think Bruce Campbell's like, I'm not playing Ash anymore. This is like, it's enough. And you know, so a few years go by, and then they announced this movie, which is another sort of reboot, not really a remake, sort of. It's not technically a sequel to the 2013 remake, but it's a bit more dark and serious and in that vein of the 2013 movie. And so, you know, automatically I am skeptical. But I watch a trailer, I'm like, yeah, it looks okay. I'm like, the boys are going to go see it because they like seeing the horror movies anyway.
Yeah, we do.
We'll go.
Do what we have to do.
Yeah, I'll grit my teeth and sit through it. And I enjoyed it. Evil Dead Rise, you know, not bad.
For what it is, it's good.
Yeah, I liked it much more than the 2013 movie. I thought it was much better. I think one of the reasons it's much better is just straight up because they're not doing the cabin in the wood thing again. You know, whereas the 2013 one was basically a remake trying to redo the same things as the original. This one does, like I said, it does a lot of that, a lot of callbacks, a lot of references to the old movies. But the fact that it's set in an apartment building automatically makes it a bit different.
Yeah.
And they do change a few things. And I think it's just a much more fun movie than the 2013 one. It doesn't have the same sensibility as the original movies. And the few moments in Evil Dead Rise where they do like a sort of funny, goofy thing didn't fit with the rest of the tone of the movie.
I think that can be partly explained. What Callum says is the phenomenon now where the studios will get a script and they'll try and fit their IP into a script.
Well,
It doesn't feel like it was written with the humor in mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
It doesn't have that vibe.
But that's what I was saying is, you know, it definitely could have just been a generic horror script that they found and said, oh, well, we have the rights to Evil Dead, let's cram it in there. But like I said, I think Lee Cronin, the writer-director, actually wrote this to be an Evil Dead movie. But obviously he had time and budget constraints. But
Especially
also,
if it's a streaming film first.
But also it's a modern horror movie set in the sort of modern horror movie universe, which is that grey brown kind of flat and digital, and I think it takes itself too seriously, which, you know, that for a normal horror movie that's not a problem, but I think in this case, like I said, when some of the more absurd, quote unquote, funny things happen, they feel completely out of place. And they don't have that same balance of comedy and horror as the originals do. And I feel like this movie either should have played it completely straight, which in my mind, not really what Evil Dead should do.
Evil Dead should always be playful.
It should have a little bit of a balance of comedy and horror.
Like, the best analog, obviously they're completely different, but the best analog in tone, I feel, is almost Scream, in a way. Right?
Scream is much more meta, though.
Scream's much more meta, but
And
it has that
self-referential.
humor and, self-referential, whereas Evil Dead is kind
and
of like
Evil-
more slapsticky jokes.
Evil Dead's
and-
more, because Sam Raimi, you know, he's very much Three Stooges. He loves the slapstick and the comedy and the physicality. And Bruce Campbell, was so
really embodies it.
embody that of like
Yeah.
rolling around on the floor and
It's funny.
getting
So
covered in blood. And
Alum's never seen The Evil Dead 2, so he has no idea what we're talking about when we talk about the humor in Evil Dead 2. Things like your hand getting possessed by the Necromonicon,
Yeah.
and he's
Give
like
me
holding
back
his
my
hand.
hand.
He's holding
Yeah.
his hand by the wrist as the hand's trying to grab him,
Yeah.
and he ends up cutting off his hand and attaching a chainsaw to it.
and then the hand gives him the finger, like the
Yeah,
disembodied
so
hand.
like we talk about the comedy aspect where it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Not like I think scary movies are kind of like
No, that's a
thing.
parody. That's
I mean
straight up
Scream.
goofy.
Yeah, no,
oh,
no,
Scream.
Scream.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
no,
Scream is more, self-referential.
But
But-
it's very much a kind of silly like
Yeah, but it's still what I mean is it's still a horror movie that values humor. In
Yeah.
a way, right?
Like
It's
The Evil
still
Dead,
but they're
levity.
different
They're
types of
different
humor,
kinds,
and they're different types
kinds.
of horror movies.
Yeah.
Scream is more
Slasher,
grounded,
yeah.
realistic slasher, whereas Evil Dead embraces that over-the-top gore and blood
Yeah.
fountains and
But-
demons and
But like
monsters.
my ultimate point is that it's like it's going to be interesting to see hopefully in the next 18 months or so that if we get some more horror movies that might be a little bit lighter. They're not dragged down into being kind of like just straight-laced serious.
Well, I was trying to think, what's the last like kind of horror comedy that came out, like that mainstream-ish? that-
in a way it's Scream.
Other than Scream?
Other than Scream, nothing. I don't know.
like,
apparently Beau is Afraid is kind of funny.
Yeah, but
that's not a
Ari
conventional
Aster,
horror
that's-
movie.
yeah.
That's different. I'm talking about like when's that last like Tucker and Dale versus Evil was like 15 years ago. What else has there been?
I don't know. I mean, Nope had some laughs, but not really. Like,
Yeah, but I
it's
wouldn't
not the
really
same.
call that's not the same thing. Like, they
again,
don't really,
not-
they haven't
no,
made them.
They
Yeah,
don't do it. But it's
and
gonna
that's
be
what I'm
interesting.
saying is Evil Dead
Yeah.
Rise. It didn't really try to go that route because I think it's trying to stay in the safe modern horror movie zone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are gonna go see it. Oh, see this as if you haven't seen any other Evil Dead movies, but you like horror movies, this is for you.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of like people will see the trailer and go, "Oh, possessed, creature and yada yada, gore, cool. I'll go see it at the movies." And so they have no preconceived notions about
Yeah.
what it should be, and that's fine. But I just, as someone who loves the originals, was kind of like, but that's kind of what I want from it. It doesn't have to go full Army
Yeah.
of Darkness goofy, but there have to be a bit of a balance.
Yeah.
One thing I did appreciate, the practical effects were pretty good.
They were.
There is a lot of good gore and practical elements.
Again, you know what? That's one thing. For a movie that went straight to streaming, I would have expected more CG gore.
No, I think at
What was
this point, after all these years of people like horror movie fans complaining, I think most filmmakers are aware enough, and this because the budget was probably lower, the studio had less interference into.
That's also true because CG does get expensive. So I'm like, when the budget's low enough, the horror movie's like, all right,
I will say though,
VFX it is.
I will say the few moments of CGI they do use look like garbage.
Yeah.
And mostly were unnecessary, which is something we complain about on every episode of this show. I think the thing with Evil Dead Rise is sometimes it would look really nice and other times it wouldn't look that good. Sometimes I really like the shots and the camera work and the editing, and other times it wouldn't be good. And so the movie for me,
It was a roller coaster.
yeah, for listeners at home, I'm doing an up and down motion with my hand,
It's
like
doing
a
a worm.
wave, like doing the worm with my hand. It's just like it will go up and down. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really interesting. I haven't seen that before. And I'll go, oh, I didn't like that. Oh, that was bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like that shot. Oh, that shot was bad. Oh, I liked how they're editing the scene. That's interesting. Oh, that editing's awful. Who cut this scene? And it was like up and down. And so at the end, it kind of balanced out to, oh, that was an okay movie.
Yeah.
Because none of it was, the bad
Yeah.
didn't outweigh the good and the good didn't outweigh the bad.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, it was a fun movie. But it never was like, oh, this is garbage. And it never went, oh, this is awesome.
Kind of uneven, yeah.
No, it was even in its
Uneven.
good and bad.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I
Even
see
in
what
its
you-
unevenness.
The good and
Yeah.
bad balanced
yeah,
out
I see what you mean. Yeah.
to the point where I was like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, like I enjoyed
You were
it.
happy and angry.
Yeah, it's like I didn't like it and then I liked it and then didn't like it. And then so at the end it was just like, oh, that was okay. It balanced all balanced out at the end. Unlike the 2013 remake, which I loathe, I enjoyed this one, and like this is Evil Dead Rise I might watch again at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know when. I don't know where.
How
I
long
don't know
was it? It
how.
wasn't
Might come up
overly long, was it?
30 years down the line, you might see it.
Evil
And
Dead
like, yeah, I'll
Rise.
watch
Yeah,
it.
it wasn't overly long.
No, it didn't. It
I
didn't,
think
didn't overstay its
hour,
welcome.
like an hour 36, something like that.
Didn't overstay its welcome.
No.
Yeah, but like I'm not gonna buy it on 4K and put it next to my original.
You're not going to hang a frame,
original
a
movies.
poster up on the wall.
Yeah, but at one point in the future, I might revisit it. And
If you ever watch the start from the start and watch the films, you know, you could end up putting it on.
I might do something like that. Yeah. And for listeners, like that's a big deal for me because I don't give.
It's another movie in the canon.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't give movies a star rating. I don't give movies a number rating. Ever since the old show, we've never done that. I've never liked doing that. I think it's arbitrary. I'm like, what does 7 out of 10 mean versus 4 out of 10 versus like if you rate something 6, what happened to 1 to 5? Like at what? I don't.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah.
To me, the quality of movies is like how much did I like it when I saw it, and how soon will I see it again? How soon will I buy it on 4K? Will I buy it on 4K at all? Will I buy the limited edition? That for me is more
How
of a...
you judge a film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one, I'm like, I'm not really going to go out
Which
and
is a
buy
practical way to judge a
it.
film.
Yeah, I'm not going to go and watch it again soon. But I will... After finishing, I was like, I might see this again one day in the future.
Yeah.
Might be 10 years from now, but I might watch it again.
Also, one thing that special mention to the fact that the book was really nice and really well done. Like the actual book,
Necronomicon.
the actual Necronomicon, practical book with the
because I love the original Necronomicons that have that face on it.
Yeah, it didn't have. The
I was disappointed it didn't have the face, but it had the teeth on the side, which I thought were cool. And I'm like, I guess if you put the face and the teeth, it would have been too much.
Yeah,
but yeah, the prop looked good. I like when they're recording, you know, the LP I like the earthquake and how they discover it. I like all that stuff. I thought that was a good scene.
See, to me, the earthquake just felt really generic to me because I was like, that seemed to me to be like, oh well, we need some way to fund the book. Earthquake.
But that makes it different because usually it's just they go in the basement and it's there.
I would have expected.
The fact there was an earthquake, it was like, oh, this was never meant to be found and wouldn't have never been found unless, except for this act of God.
If you'd explained to me the basic premise of the movie, but didn't explain to me that it involved the earthquake, and you said to me, Nathan, how would you think they'd find the book? I'm like, well, obviously the kids break into an abandoned apartment in the complex.
I thought they were just going to go down to the basement of the apartment complex and find it.
All the residents live on the one floor, yeah?
Yeah.
So I would just assume that they were going to break into like one of the older units.
That's another thing that I thought, budget-wise, if they had a bit more time and money, I think it would have been interesting to play a bit more with the verticality of the building because the whole thing takes place on one floor. There's their 3 neighbors who live together. They look like brothers, the kind of Maori guys. Yeah. And then there's an older neighbor who's like a grumpy old guy who smokes cigars or whatever.
And he has a cat.
Yeah, and then that's it. And then there's the main family in their main apartment. And then they run up and down the hallway a bit. There's a couple of scenes in the elevator, a couple of scenes in the parking garage in the basement. And most of the rest of the movie takes place in the family's just single apartment. Yeah. I'm like, if they had a bit more time, a bit more money, it would have been cool to play the verticality, like running up and down the stairs, going to different apartments. Because it's a condemned building, you could have bits that are fenced off and they have to break into empty apartments and to break through the wall. And it's like, we have to escape. You know,
they were trying to break through into one of the empty apartments, and then
they never could.
Yeah, they just teased that. And I'm like, damn it, I want to see this. Yeah.
I remember, like a few months ago, we were talking about the older '80s Italian horror movies, Demons and Demons 2, and Demons 2 took place in the apartment building. And even though it was a cheesy old '80s Italian horror movie, like there's just more going on in that movie where they're just like run up and down, going to different apartments as zombies smash it through things, and the cars driving around the parking garage and them smashing into zombies and demons, and there's just so much going on. That's why I love those old 80s movies, because even though this one's Evil Dead Rise is more polished and
less
more modern,
yeah.
There's just less going on, more contained, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I just kind of thought of like, it just takes place in one
I think, like, again, it's a matter of scope because it's like I wouldn't expect an Evil Dead kind of studio-funded movie with a known IP to be like. You expect that kind of self-contained in one building or one
The
apartment
Cabin
to be
in the
like
Woods, yeah.
The
Evil
Cabin in the
Dead's always
Woods.
been about that, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, you would expect it from something to be a little bit more known, you'd more scope or more adventure.
But that's
or,
like I said, the studio's never going to invest the money it needs. You know, they're never going to do that medieval prequel that I wanted. Army of Darkness was a miracle when it came out. I mean, I don't think they're going to do anything like that ever again. Even Ash vs. the Evil Dead, the TV show, which is, you know, a normal budgeted, normal production show, also shot in New Zealand. That still had a lot of stuff going on because there's a show and they had more characters and it had road trip elements and they would go to different places and, you know, there was more villains and whereas when it comes to the movie, the studio is just going to be like, we have this IP, we're going to give you this amount of money, you have to do it quickly and it's going to go streaming. Yeah. But anyway, I could ramble on all night, but I'll just say maybe a couple other things. I liked all the kids. I thought they were all pretty good.
Yeah.
Shout out VIP is Stephanie.
Yeah.
The little
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah.
The little girl's doll / staff. That was fun.
Which did protect her at one point.
Yes. There's a lot of foreshadowing. There's Chekhov's gun in every second scene. You know, it's like, oh, they're setting that up for later. Oh, they're setting that up. Oh, the scissors are there. Okay, I see what you're doing there. Setting up that. Almost maybe too much. It's a bit on the nose. But at least they didn't come out of nowhere, I guess.
Yeah,
that would be worse.
It wasn't like a character put something there, looked at the camera like, we'll save this for later.
Yeah.
Wink. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like an Evil Dead 2 joke, that winking at the camera kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like Ash will play, we'll leave this for later. Wink.
So you know how there were things that they said in this movie that's directly from like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. You know, like zombies saying Dead by Dawn, Dead by Dawn. That's directly from Evil Dead 2. When she says come get some, that's from Army of Darkness. I'm like, that's too on the nose. I don't like that. The one thing they could have done, the one callback they should have done, in my opinion, is the son is he wannabe DJ. So he has a turntable, and that's why they're able to play the records. I'm like, okay, I like that.
That's why they're struggling to pay the rent. He's got like tens of thousands of dollars worth of DJ equipment.
Yeah. When he finds the vinyl, he should have said groovy. Like Ash does.
Yeah.
Even though he's a kid and he wouldn't kids don't say that.
Yeah.
His mum is like a cool tattoo artist who definitely would have said that around
the mum
house.
could have picked it up and went, oh,
And also he
groovy.
plays he plays vinyl, so he knows at least enough about old music to know what groovy means. That's the one thing they should have, the one callback they should have done. You know, because I'm like, I would have liked this movie probably more if they cut out the chainsaw, cut out the shotgun, cut out the rest of that dialogue that's from the old movies, and just have it be its own movie, but it's still set in the Evil Dead universe. One thing
definitely.
also, sorry, I could go on all night.
No,
I'll
no,
shut
keep
up
going.
soon.
No.
At the start of the movie, they say, when they play the recording, Bruce Campbell has a cameo on the recording. That's cool. One of, the guy doing the recording says it's one of 3 books, which, as far as I know, if I'm not mistaken, in the original Evil Dead trilogy, there's only ever been 1 book. So if the one book from the original Sam Raimi movies is book 1,
book.
If the book from the 2013 remake is book 2,
they're unifying all the
and Evil Dead Rise has book 3, then all 3 movies take place in the same timeline and canon and
that's
universe.
interesting.
And they could play with that in the future.
So we could get another Necromonicon in a sequel that has the base on it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Or you could definitely play with the fact that this is all happening in the same universe.
An ECU? EDCU?
So you put all the 3 books together, you summon Exodia?
Yeah, basically. No, but see, wouldn't that be an interesting idea where you take all the protagonists from the franchise,
that was the
including
plan.
the supporting cast from
Yeah.
Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and you have one
Yeah.
big maybe multi-film, multi-genre, whatever
Yeah,
idea about what happens when all three
That will
books-
never happen.
all the books are together,
Mm.
and then it triggers some sort of
Yeah, like I said, they'll never
negative-
put the time and money and budget. They'll never get it to work. They'll never get everyone back together.
But what
at
a
the
cool
same
idea,
time.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the actors. Even though a lot of the accents, you could tell they were Kiwis or Aussies. Alyssa Sutherland, who plays the mum who becomes possessed, was quite good. You know, in her physicality and stuff.
Yeah,
And she was Australian. I didn't know that. She did quite a good job.
I could tell she was Australian when she said titty suckers.
Because that's
Then she said it the most, you could see the Australian come out in that.
titty sucking parasites. She calls her kids titty sucking. That's gold. Classic Deadite. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't hate it, and for me,
that's an endorsement.
That's
yeah.
a glowing endorsement. If you've listened to the show before, if you've been listening to what I've been saying about the original movies, yeah, that's a 2 thumbs up. You know.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah, it was alright. Check it out if you like horror movies.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's all the time we've got for tonight,
Yeah.
everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, Instagram, and still the Twitter.
Yeah, maybe not for long. We'll see.
So obviously, for anyone that needs extra context, James is the real life version of Jay Sherman, and so
It stinks.
It stinks.
It stinks.
Yes, Richard Sherman. Everything stinks.
Yeah. I'm an angry movie critic. Yeah.
Yes, we still have the Twitter. For how long, I don't know. To keep audiences in the know.
Well,
We
hopefully,
will not pay for the blue tick.
will
hopefully
not pay for
they'll
the
give
blue
us a
tick.
blue tick because apparently they're doing that now to trick people.
We're not
into-
paying
People-
$1,000 a
the
month
people
for
have
the yellow
like
tick.
the people have a million subscribers or more. They just give them the blue tick.
Yeah.
But wasn't that the thing before?
Yes. No, it was.
No,
But
yeah,
Well,
but
but then they'll
you
make
had to
you
went
pay
through
for
more
it and then-
verification. Like it used to be, the blue tick was like if you're actually someone important or in your field.
yes.
Too long
And now
ago,
it's basically
Elon's
just
done.
like
And to
anyone
avoid
who
people
has a
impersonating
sufficient
you.
following.
Yeah.
Except for YouTubers, they hated YouTubers for a while.
Yeah. It's interesting because we used to get anywhere from 150 to 200 views on our Twitter posts when we would put out a new episode, yeah. And now we're getting like 15 to 20 because we don't have,
algorithm.
because they changed the algorithm to
Yeah.
prioritize the blue ticks.
Well,
Do you
I've
want
said
to
it
pay
before.
for it for a month just as a trial?
No, I'm not
No,
paying for
no
it.
way.
Look,
I'm not
fine
giving
with-
Elon my
Elon
money.
can-
Fine, with a stolen credit card.
All right, you steal a credit card and we'll do it.
Okay. I'm sure you know.
It's a
how to-
victimless crime.
All right,
Yeah,
Alan,
yeah.
you can be our producer and you can organise
Yeah, yeah.
that. Go ahead, go nuts.
No, well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you're listening and Twitter is your main preferred kind of way of getting Tuesday Review information,
Then stop it.
you have
some
to
help.
one, stop, get off Twitter, but two, you have to let us know because we're trying to get off that as soon as we can.
When there's an alternative, we'll take it and delete the
Yeah.
Twitter.
Truth.
Also, we only post like once a week anyway,
Yeah.
so it's if you miss out on the Twitter, you can
Yeah.
find it. Yeah.
Please like and
You-
share all the socials.
Yeah, use Boomer Book like the rest. So, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, I think is the only one that's not
Not completely dead in the water.
not dead.
We need to look
Find
for
us
other
on our
avenues.
bulletin board.
You know, if you have any good ideas, hit us up.
Well, the thing is we've talked about it so many times.
Yeah.
We don't have time for this. If we had
Yeah.
time, we would have had a YouTube up already, and we would have
Yeah.
we would have posted more. And
Yeah, there is a YouTube up for Car Talk. Dun, dun, dun.
well, yeah, but you were helping Matt out with that, weren't you?
You can help us
now
out
you
with
can
this.
help us with
Yeah.
that.
I was like, nah.
There you go.
Yeah, once more.
Yeah.
Hey, I paid for the website hosting. Thank you very much. Or the
Okay,
web-
well now we have to actually create the website
or
because
the
at the
name
moment,
hosting, I should say.
yeah,
So you
'Cause
can
we just
go
got the
to-
domain name.
You can go to tuesdayreview.com. It'll just lead you to our Facebook.
Facebook page, yeah.
Please like and share all the socials. You can listen to all the other episodes wherever you listen. You
Rate,
can also
review, and subscribe.
rate, review, and subscribe. Ring that bell.
I know, yeah, I know. We just.
bell?
Yeah,
I know,
Oh, sorry.
it's a joke
Yeah.
about YouTube's, of course. We do not have.
I know we don't really engage that much, and you know we're just doing this as a hobby, and we've kind of had our ups and downs as to what we're doing with this show. But rating and reviewing and subscribing does help it to get out to more people, and maybe if more people listen.
We've had some reviews every now and again where they say we hate when they talk politics, but the movies are
that was
okay."
one guy, and I'm like,
I remember that guy.
I'm like,
come
one,
fight me, come to the
yeah,
station.
I'm like, one, fair enough, but two, I'm like, if he's a Nazi, I don't want him listening to our stuff.
Also, you can please listen live as well. If you want some more danger in your life.
We do record at 98.9 Northwest FM. We go live at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, but I don't think there are many people. There are not many people who can actually get the signal. But we have the online.
It's on through TuneIn Radio.
Streaming, yeah. You can get
live dangerously. Radio. Listen to the car wreck live.
Yeah.
Pre-edit. Hey, back in the day, I used to edit everything out. Now it's just Nathan chops off the start and the end, and we upload.
I feel like people like listening to it a little bit rougher, though. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be clean.
Yes, our audience likes
behind
it
the
rough.
scenes.
Our audience likes it.
We're going to start
rough.
a Patreon, having the behind the scenes,
That's it.
all
We'll start an
the
OnlyFans.
spicy stuff you can't say on air.
We'll put you in touch with OnlyFans, Alan. That's what we'll do.
The car talk. See, that's exactly what we went with car talk. We're like Patreon, nah, OnlyFans.
Yeah. All right, we're back next week. Adios, cousins.